Actually, when we was out playing golf today with Dale and Patrick, I actually got a text message from the school saying that his exemption was expired. And we had already gotten a permanent.
His extension. You're going to have to pull a few people over again then, aren't you?
I guess so. Whatever it takes. But I called,
the Mississippi Department of Health.
Yeah, Mississippi Department of Health, and spoke to the same young lady I pulled over. And she explained to me that it was expired.
And so it wasn't a permanent exemption then?
Oh, it is.
Well, how can you expire a permanent exemption?
That was the question.
That's right. That's what we was trying to figure out. Because she was saying it was permanent. I said, well, she's telling me it's expired. And she said she'd call me back. And she called me back and said she called Jackson. And Jackson showed her where it was permanent. And so now, apparently, the paperwork wasn't sent to the school. So we was afraid he was fixing to get kicked out of school. It's a never-ending battle. Because
think of the people who don't have any contacts, or don't have any money, or don't have any understanding. I mean, we've been speaking to them this afternoon. So you guys are going to have to consider coming down to Texas.
I don't mind fighting. I'll fight for my kids any day.
All right, the fight's on.
The fight is on.
Say good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Constantly being harassed by the Health and Human Services Division just today. Folks we're playing with, I will not name them, got a call that their child's medical exemption had expired, which it really hadn't, and they were literally on the phone. We're out playing golf, and they're on the phone trying to fight and prove over the phone with the health department that they have a permanent exemption, not a temporary one.
Yeah,
and,
they already have a permanent exemption.
It's really hard to watch, and really scary for me living in California. If this is our future, just sad state of affairs. But I have hope. That's why we're in this. We're gonna win this.
My name's Lauren. This is Wyatt.
Russell.
This is Russell.
And so your mummy, daddy, Wyatt.
And youngest son.
Yes. Youngest son.
Youngest son.
So these are your boys.
Yeah.
My oldest is back there with a new.
So presumably you vaccinated all your other children.
Yes.
All fine.
Yes.
That's a strange thing.
Hunter was vaccinated completely fine. Wyatt was vaccinated, and I thought completely fine until he got his 18-month shots. We got him a little bit late. I think he was probably 20 or 22 months when we got the shots. He got his 4th dose of the HIB.
The what?
I think it's
HIV?
HIB, the HIB, the DTaP, and he got a pneumonia shot that actually wasn't required, but I didn't know.
At what age?
He was 20, 22 months, somewhere around in there. And that was in South Haven, which is probably about 20 minutes from here. And by the time we got back to Hernando, he had a high fever. He had a high-pitched scream that I'd never heard before. He was pretty much limp. He was lifeless. He was awake, but he wasn't there. He was almost like he was drugged or in a zombie-type state. He wouldn't look at me. He wouldn't talk to me. He wouldn't play. He didn't feel good. I figured it was just because of the shots. He didn't feel good. I called the doctor's office about, the fever and the fact that he was so limp. And they said it's normal. They told me to give him Tylenol and Motrin, alternate, whichever one said 6 hours, whichever one said 8 hours, just do what the instructions said and you could alternate the two to try and keep the fever down. And I did that. Within the next few days, the injection sites got really large, hard, and hot. And if you touched them, they were, painful to him, you could tell. They were really painful for him. He started rolling in the floor. He would just roll back and forth. And stopped playing with his brother, stopped playing with his toys, stopped pretty much everything, stopped talking, stopped trying to walk or crawl, or we had cats. He loved the cats. All of a sudden he's terrified of the cats. My sister had dogs. He loved the dogs. All of a sudden he's terrified of the dogs. He was terrified of water. He didn't want to get in the pool. He didn't want to get in the bath. We could do showers, but it wasn't necessarily pleasant. The worst part, I think I would have to say, is he stopped allowing us to hold him, touch him, kiss him, try and console him. We got baths and diaper changes, and that was a big deal. He didn't want to have anything to do with us. He didn't want to be touched. He had eczema. He had eczema from the day we came home from the hospital. And I don't know if he had it when he was born or if he just had it when we left. I don't know if it was something that he already had or maybe something he got from a vaccine at birth. I don't know. But it wasn't diagnosed as eczema until quite a bit later. But when those shots that caused this major reaction, his eczema spread like wildfire. It got so much worse. His skin cracked and bled in lots of places. I mean, he was just almost covered in open sores because of the eczema. He was just cracking all over. Called the doctor about that. It's normal. It's normal. It's not a big deal. Just, put this cream on it, which I found out later causes cancer. I got lost.
The cream caused cancer.
Well, they gave me a bunch of steroid creams, and one of the ones that they gave me for the eczema was what they call a black label, I guess, and it's when I had used it for a while, and then I went to pick up a refill for it, and the pharmacist, a new pharmacist, showed me the black label and the risks involved in that medication, and we stopped using it at that point because it was known to cause cancer and for infertility, and he was, very young at the time, and I wasn't willing to do that to him, at that age. So we still battled the eczema at times, mainly on his hands and feet. He still rolls back and forth when he's asleep, so I know he's not getting any good sleep. He still rolls. Other than that, he's mostly recovered.
So he's not being forced to be vaccinated anymore?
No, we finally have medical exemptions for both boys. Well, let me rephrase that. We finally have political exemptions for both boys. The doctor that we saw when he got the vaccinations, when he got a rash on his arm, and I took him back into that was a month after the vaccines. When he got the rash on his arm, I took him back into the doctor's office and found out that it was a shingles rash. And I asked the doctor, how he could have a shingles rash if he hasn't had the chicken pox. And he told me that he got it off of a grocery store buggy, but you can't get shingles if you haven't had the chickenpox virus. So I asked him if it could have been, and all of this could have been, because of the vaccines, and he looked me dead in the face and he told me, your son is showing autistic symptoms and you are just upset and looking for something to blame and jumping on a bandwagon. And that's what he told me. And so we left, and
I hate that. I really hate that. I mean, we don't look for something, we blame ourselves. We're the ones that took them down. And don't start.
Right.
Don't blame yourselves. We do.
Right,
End
exactly.
Done.
Exactly.
Moving on.
Exactly.
So we don't need to look for anything. We know exactly what it is.
And we did it. Exactly. And so I spent a few days on the phone with some of the other doctors in the practice, telling them what had happened, and that, I saw it start to happen with the vaccines. And had I not seen it myself, I wouldn't have believed it either. I wouldn't have ever thought the vaccines weren't safe because no one ever told me, and I didn't know. And So anyway, I talked to these other doctors, and I had probably 3 or 4 of them agree with me that we had seen a adverse reaction to the vaccines. And so I asked them at that point to write a medical exemption letter for him so that he could go to school at some point. And they told me that they wouldn't write me a medical exemption letter because if they wrote one for me, they'd have to write one for everybody else. And so we fought for a few years trying to find a doctor who would listen to what had happened and what I was saying. And the moment you mention a vaccine reaction, the doctors basically boot you out of the office and say you're crazy. And we finally found a doctor in Tennessee who would listen to the timeline of events and everything that had happened to him. And she said that she believed that he had had a vaccine reaction and he had gotten encephalitis post-vaccination. So his brain swelled. Now that was probably, I don't know, a year or 2 after I had started researching on my own, because we were on our own when that first doctor kicked me out and I couldn't find one who would listen. We went to Dr. Google to try and figure this out and help him. And so when she said that, and I went home and I looked it up because I didn't know what encephalitis was. I went home and I looked it up and found out that it was brain swelling, and if left untreated, you can die from it. There's a little bit of a oh my God factor there, because we could have lost him because nobody would help us. Nobody would look at us and actually see what was happening. We were on our own. So we know that we're incredibly lucky to still have him. And with that luck also comes almost a survivor's guilt for all the kids that didn't make it. And the parents that didn't have help. I'm so grateful that he's okay. And I'm grateful to all of you for doing what you're doing so that maybe the doctors will know or care. I'm not even sure which it is at this point.
It's hard for you to listen to some of this, yes? But do you know how handsome you are? You've got a lot of hearts. People are loving you. You're a very handsome boy. Are you at school now?
Yeah.
How old are you, did you say?
11.
You're 11 years old. You at school? Did you have friends at school?
A few.
I bet you have all the girls chasing after you. Look at you, you're so handsome. You don't want... My son Toby's 18, he still says, I don't want anything to do with them, Mum. They're expensive, they're annoying. So you're doing the right thing. You're a beautiful boy.
I forgot to elaborate on the medical exemption for this one and for that one.
So I haven't even heard from you.
From Dad?
Daddy?
I don't speak.
You don't say much.
Usually it costs me money when I speak, so I just let her do all the speaking.
All right, we'll go back to you.
When we found the doctor who would listen to us and she diagnosed him with encephalitis post-vaccination, she wrote him a medical exemption letter to allow him to attend school. Because the law in Mississippi is that any doctor, any duly licensed physician can write a medical exemption letter on behalf of a child who would need one. Those letters are then submitted to the Mississippi Department of Health, who can accept them or deny them. They denied her letters based on the fact that she was an out-of-state doctor. That's not in the law, that's in their policy, that it has to be an in-state licensed doctor who writes the letter. So we battled that. I was able to call back, and well, when I called to find out why they had denied the letter, the Mississippi Department of Health officer yelled at me and was belittling and quite rude to me, and basically just said that the Mississippi Department of Health makes the rules, and I live in Mississippi, so, you know, you have to take it. And so I called him back and told him that she actually is licensed in both states, Mississippi and Tennessee, and so please approve the letters, and they did. They approved the letters for a temporary exemption for a year for before him. And at this point, the oldest was still current on his vaccines because they hadn't added anything new to the schedule. When my oldest got to 7th grade, they added the Tdap booster to the 7th grade schedule in Mississippi, and so he had to get another vaccine. The Tdap it's a variation of the DTaP, which is one of the ones that injured Wyatt. So I asked the doctor about it, and if it was, if there would be any problem with Hunter getting it after it was something that had injured his brother with the same DNA, and she was unsure, and I was unsure, so she wrote a medical exemption for him as well. And after his expired, I had sent the letter back to the Department of Health for another approval for the following year, and that I think came in line with Hunter's 7th grade year, where he was supposed to get another vaccine. And so the paperwork was sitting at the Mississippi Department of Health. We were waiting on an approval or a denial. And she got pulled over for speeding by my husband. And she knew who he was. He didn't know who she was. And she told him that she had both boys' paperwork on her desk and that she was in charge of what gets approved and what gets denied. And he wrote her the speeding ticket and told her to have a nice day. When she decided that she needed this ticket taken care of, she had the district officer send a permanent exemption for Wyatt's vaccine injury. We spent another 2 years or so trying to get Hunter a permanent exemption, and in the process his exemption expired. He had a temporary exemption, and his expired, and they suspended him from school for non-compliance. That was actually before the traffic citation. I think that he got another temporary and he got a permanent because of the traffic citation. So both of my children actually have political exemptions as opposed to medical exemptions.
Wowza. This whole thing is so corrupt, okay, two things. One, everybody loves you guys.
Thank you, thank you.
So you're massively popular, especially you. You're extremely popular.
When he got the vaccinations and he lost speech, it took us until he was about 5 years old to speak his first post-vaccine injury sentence. He spoke a few words here and there as he started to recover, but his first sentence when he was about 5 years old. And he said to me, we were in the car, and Taylor Swift's song came on, and he said, "Mama, I really like this song." And I cried. So now every time I hear that song, I think of him.
That's beautiful. Well, a whole sentence like that in one go?
In one go.
That's a bit much for your mum to cope with.
It was.
Whole sentence like that. Wow. You guys are amazing. Brother over there, amazing brother. It's been hard for you as well. We know, siblings, we totally get it.
Actually, when we was out playing golf today with Dale and Patrick, I actually got a text message from the school saying that his exemption was expired. And we had already gotten a permanent one.
His extension. You're going to have to pull a few people over again then, aren't you?
I guess so. Whatever it takes. But I called
the Mississippi Department of Health.
Yeah, Mississippi Department of Health, and spoke to the same young lady I pulled over, and she explained to me that it was expired.
And so it wasn't a permanent exemption then?
Oh, it is.
Well, how can you expire a permanent exemption?
That was the question.
That's right. That's what we was trying to figure out, because me and her was arguing. I said, well, I guess it expired. She kept telling me that, no, it's not. We got a permanent one. And so I called her, and she said, you know, well, I'm showing here it expired. And I said, well, no, because me and her was arguing because she was saying it was permanent. I said, well, she's telling me it's expired. And so we hung up, and she said she called me back. And she called me back and said she called Jackson, and Jackson showed her where it was permanent. And so now, apparently, the paperwork wasn't sent to the school, so we was afraid he was fixing to get kicked out of school. And so she actually did call me back and tell me that it was permanent, and she would send it over to the school. And it just, you know, it's a never-ending battle. Because we
think of the people who don't have any contacts, or don't have any money, or don't have any understanding. I mean, we've been speaking to them this afternoon.
Also,
they're going to have to vaccinate, they say.
Also, his exemption is permanent for all vaccines, period, because that's the way his is worded, his exemption for all vaccines. His exemption is exempt for all vaccines that are on the schedule right now. If they mandate another vaccine on the schedule, we will have to start all over again for a new exemption.
You guys are going to have to consider coming down to Texas.
I don't mind fighting. I'll fight for my kids any day.
All right, the fight's on.
The fight is on.
Say good night.
Good night.
Good night.